Hello, everyone. My name is Fabian Zimmer. I'm a group product manager in the enablement stage of GitLab, and I will walk you through our plans for 14.1 for the Sharding group. Let me quickly share my screen. So I walk you through this planning issue here. So before I do, I would like to take a step back to explain the context of the work that the Sharding group is doing. So GitLab is growing very rapidly, and this entails a necessity to actually scaling GitLab's database backend, which is based on Postgres. We've performed a couple of proof of concepts for different approaches on how to actually scale GitLab's database to at least 10 million monthly active users. And the approach that we chose to pursue is an approach that is essentially focusing on decomposing GitLab's database to improve scalability. This means that we will move from a single database server backend with a single database, logical database, or maybe a couple, to a world where GitLab handles many databases, many logical databases that can actually live in different database servers, which allows us to scale. And so what we've chosen to do is to actually focus on the tables that are related to our continuous integration feature set, because those tables form a large proportion of our database right now. And to give you an overview of the impact here, the database size, around 36% of the size is related to CI tables. Around 17% or 18% of the reads can be attributed to CI, but more importantly, writes, almost 50% of the writes are to do with CI tables. And reads can be scaled by providing read replicas. Writes, so changes in the database, are a lot harder to scale. And in order to accomplish this, we're going to move the CI tables into a different database. So this is a large endeavor. As you can see, there are many different work streams that we will need to perform. We will need to support many databases. We need to actually decompose the CI tables, understand how they behave in GitLab's database. Very importantly, we need to create migration tooling. We need to improve observability, testing, and we will need to coordinate with other teams across GitLab to actually deploy the changes that we make onto .com. It's very important that every change that we make is also supported for our self-managed customers, and that specific features that are very reliant on our database technology, such as Geo, are also supported. To give you a high-level overview of the roadmap, so we anticipate that the entire project will take until the end of Q4 2021, so the end of the year, end of January 2022. And this is tentative, so things may change, but what we're really interested in at the moment is breaking down the work and identifying our first steps towards a minimal viable change that actually brings us closer to shipping some changes to our staging environment and ultimately then into production. So I'll focus on that a little bit more. For 14.1, so the upcoming release for GitLab, we are going to focus on achieving a goal, which is to have GitLab actually working with more than one database. So how are we going to accomplish this? And so we had some discussions inside the team. We're trying to do something really minimal here. We're going to focus on a single CI table, CI instance variables first, out of around 50 that we know we will need to actually move to a separate database. And this table has some properties that are quite useful for us. Actually, it doesn't contain any data right now. It's very handy, which allows us to focus on, for example, managing more than one database first. And we're trying to actually get something deployed, hopefully in staging. It's a bit of a stretch goal, but we're trying to be ambitious. As a second track, and this is a longer term process, I'll walk you through that in more detail, is we know that we will have to migrate a large amount of data, more than 5 terabytes of data. We want to be very confident that we can do this. And so we're also kicking off work in that area to help build this tooling and gain confidence in it, because this is something that once we start working with it, we need to make sure we are not putting any data at risk. So let's focus on support for many databases first, which is also directly related to the goal that we're trying to accomplish, actually, working with more than one database. For 14.1, we're only going to focus on a subset of issues that are important to actually have this work with the specific CI instance variable table. And so in order to accomplish this, we will have to disable the Rails legacy connection handling. We've recently upgraded to Rails 6.1, which has native support for multiple databases. We will need to handle multiple schemas. Importantly, we also need to make sure that our development environments are supporting many databases so our engineers can develop rapidly. So this is something that we will need to focus on. And we need to make Omnibus and Cloud Native GitLab at least configurable with many databases. So this is the very minimal amount of work. I mean, it's not minimal as it is a lot of work, but this minimal set of issues that we will need to actually complete in order to allow us to support many databases for this specific table. There's obviously more work going to happen in 14.2 and beyond, but we are trying to be very focused here on only the items that we need in order to ship a small MVC. In this epic, and this is essentially trying to understand how all of the CI tables behave in GitLab, we need to fill in a little bit more context here. We've actually just made a decision to focus on a very small subset of items, of tables, one to be precise, which is the CI instance variable table. These are instance-wide settings. You can define variables that then would be inserted into your CI jobs. And on GitLab.com, this is currently empty, which simplifies our migration because we don't need to actually migrate anything for this. So the only thing we really need to do is create CI instance variables, the table on a new database, and then handle the switch over. So this is what we're going to focus on here. There's still a lot of work to understand how these tables actually behave overall, and that would have to happen a little bit later. In a parallel track, and as I've just explained, for our first iteration to support many databases, the CI instance variables is essentially empty on GitLab.com, so that simplifies a few things. But we already know that one of the main challenges of executing this project will be actually creating migration tooling to handle us moving data around between multiple databases. And so this is going to take more than one milestone. We already know that, and we are in the process of figuring out how to do this most efficiently. There are a few different proposals. So we will need to define a way to move one table to a new shard with no downtime. We need to make sure that the migration has actually fully executed so that everything is replicated. We need to monitor this. We need to be able to select where to actually put data. There's many different problems to solve here, and this is really important to get right because we're obviously moving data, so we need to be very mindful that once we roll this out, it works as expected, and we also believe that we're probably going to do this several times just to make sure that everything is in place. And so in 14.1, we are going to actually focus on figuring out what kind of migration helpers are needed, the solutions for that. Adam, an engineer in the team, has already laid out a few different ideas on how to actually execute it. And we're going to move forward with that concurrently to the other work, because we know that this is going to be something that's going to be very important. So we want to be sure to start this early so we're not going to have a bottleneck later on when we're working on it. And that's it for 14.1. This is quite ambitious already. I've laid out the specific issues here for the milestone. There's also a bit of preparation and planning to be done because this is a big change for GitLab. So we need to involve feature teams and other groups early on to make them aware that this is sort of coming up. Most importantly will be the collaboration, I think, with the infrastructure teams to make sure that we can deploy on .com in a way that is safe and understood. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening. I welcome feedback. Please feel free to contribute. We iterate very rapidly on this, so team members will likely also create new issues. There is some uncertainty still in some areas, so while we work on it, we are going to utilize our more continuous process of making sure that we move as fast as possible. Thank you very much and have a lovely day.